It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Hey there, Hive. What is up? It's your gal pal, Kelly Hint, psychotherapist, feminist life coach, and the queen bee of this hive, coming in hot with another episode of the Hint Hive, amplifying women's voices. Today, we are getting strategic, we are getting bold, and we are absolutely done playing small. We are talking about how women can navigate power dynamics in negotiation, whether that's your salary, your business deals, your workload, your boundaries, or even in your personal relationships. Because here's the truth that no one ever taught us growing up. Negotiation is not just a skill, it is a power move. And too many women have been conditioned to avoid it, or worse, to feel guilty for even wanting more. Let me say this clearly. Wanting more is not greed. It is self-respect. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Power dynamics are real, and ignoring them does not make you more likable. It makes you less prepared. Research consistently shows that women are less likely to initiate negotiations compared to men. One widely cited study found that men initiate salary negotiations about 4 times more often than women do. And when women do negotiate, they are more likely to experience social penalties, being labeled as difficult, demanding, or unlikable. So let's name it. The system is biased. And that bias shows up in pay gaps, promotion opportunities, leadership perceptions, and who gets taken seriously in the room. But here's the empowering reframe. Understanding the game means that you can play it strategically, not shrink inside it. Because when you pretend power dynamics don't exist, you are negotiating blind. And we don't do blind here. We do informed. We do intentional. We do powerful. As a psychotherapist, I want to break this down on a deeper level, so let's talk about the psychology behind women in negotiation. Many women are socialized from a very young age to prioritize harmony over conflict, likability over authority, accommodation over advocacy, and being chosen over choosing. So when negotiation shows up, it can feel deeply uncomfortable. Not because you're incapable, but because it clashes with everything you were taught makes you good. So your brain starts firing off thoughts like, am I being too much? What if they don't like me? What if I lose the opportunity? What if I ruin this relationship? That is not weakness. That is conditioning. Yes, we talk a lot about conditioning here in the Hive because that's the reality that we are living in. And here's where it gets even more important. Your nervous system is involved. Negotiation can trigger a stress response. You might feel your heart racing, your voice getting shaky, or the urge to over-explain or backtrack what you've said. That is a fight, flight, or fawn response kicking in. And a lot of women default to fawning, which is basically people-pleasing to maintain safety. So when you recognize that, something powerful happens. You stop internalizing the fear and start externalizing the system. And from there, you can respond instead of react. Now let's get into the good stuff, how to actually do this. The first thing is to anchor yourself in data, not emotion. Confidence is great. Evidence is better. Before any negotiation, research market rates like salary, pricing, or industry standards. Know your value metrics. Document your achievements and quantify your impact whenever possible, whether that's revenue generated for the company, time saved, results delivered, all of that fun stuff. If you're trying to renegotiate boundaries within your home, talk about all of the unpaid labor that you do and how that contributes to the home system. Because here's the thing, specifics are valuable. Saying, I've worked really hard is vague. Saying, I increased client retention by 30% is undeniable. When you lead with data, you reduce the chance of your request being dismissed as emotional. You know, that word that gets tossed at women an awful lot. And yes, it is unfair that women often have to over-prepare. But we need to use strategy, not resentment, to get what we want and need. We've got to learn to play the game, right? The next step is to use strategic framing. Here's a powerful research-backed trick. Women who frame negotiation in terms of collective benefit experience less backlash. This is called communal framing. Instead of, I deserve more money, try, based on my contributions and the value I bring to the team, I'd like to discuss aligning my compensation with industry standards. Ooh, doesn't that sound so badass? Or, I want to make sure that I'm positioned to continue delivering strong results for the team. Same message, different framing, more effective. That is not manipulation. That is psychological intelligence. And the next step is to normalize the ask. One of the biggest power shifts, treat negotiation like it's expected, because it is. A lot of employers, clients, and decision makers actually anticipate negotiation. When you don't do it, you may be leaving money, resources, or opportunities on the table. Practice phrases like, is there flexibility here? What options do we have? Can we revisit this number? What does the range look like for this role? The more you practice, the less charged it feels. Because confidence is built through repetition, not perfection. In the next step in your negotiations, silence is a power tool. Oh, this one is so underrated. After you make your ask, pause. Do not fill the silence. I know it's uncomfortable. I know your brain is screaming, say something in that moment. This is actually something that I do as a therapist. I practice silence because silence is where power lives. In the therapy setting, my urge often is to jump in and have something brilliant prepared to say, right? But I'm robbing my client of doing the work that they need to do, of reflecting, of thinking harder. And when you're in a negotiation, silence is such a power move. People often reveal more information, offer concessions, or reconsider their position when given space. Silence communicates confidence. Over-explaining communicates doubt. So let it breathe. Sit with the discomfort. You'll be surprised what happens. In the next step, prepare for pushback without personalizing it. Pushback is not rejection. It's actually part of the process. Let me repeat that. This is very, very important. Pushback is part of the process of negotiation. So instead of thinking they don't value me, try, this is the negotiation phase. Have your responses ready during the negotiation. You can say things like, "Can you help me understand the constraints? What would need to change to make this possible? Are there alternative ways that we can meet in the middle?" This keeps you in the conversation instead of shutting it down. Stay curious. Stay grounded. Stay in the room. And then the next step, know your walkaway point. This is your boundary. Before entering any negotiation, whether for money, for resources, for time, enforcing boundaries, whatever, ask yourself, what is the minimum that I am willing to accept? This is often called your BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. In simpler terms, what will you do if this doesn't work out? Because power isn't just about asking. It's about being willing to walk. And when you know that you have options, you show up differently. You are not desperate. You are discerning. And that energy, that confidence is felt. And then the next step, practice out loud. Yes, really. This is one of the most practical and overlooked tools. Say your negotiation out loud before you ever have it. Practice with a friend, a mentor, or in the mirror, because sometimes your brain needs rehearsal to feel safe. The more familiar the words feel in your mouth, the more confident you'll sound when it matters. And now let's be real. Strategy is only half of it. The other half is your internal narrative. If deep down you believe, I'm lucky to even be here, I shouldn't ask for more, other people deserve this more than me, that energy will show up. So we shift to, I bring value. I am allowed to advocate for myself. My voice matters. I'm not asking for too much. I'm asking for what aligns. Because negotiation is not just external. It is deeply internal. It's about how you see yourself. And when that shifts, everything shifts. I have had to negotiate many times throughout my career, whether it was in the field of psychology or not. And I didn't do a great job initially. One of the things that I just went over about not personalizing it, I often felt that when I was told no, it is because I wasn't valued or they didn't like me or any of that other nonsense that I told myself, instead of recognizing that corporate America is often about the bottom line and they're not going to give a cent more than what they have to. And so I made decisions accordingly. I got confident in who I was, what I was willing to settle for. And quite often I left the environments that did not value me. I did the same in my practice. So this year, I stopped taking insurance. I am an out-of-network insurance provider now in my therapy private practice. And that was after decades of being basically abused by insurance companies. They don't treat their providers well. They don't pay them well. And after doing all the work that I did, after all of the student loans that I had, I decided I was worth more. I got confident. I tried negotiating with insurance companies for rate increases. They didn't do that. As a matter of fact, they decreased my rate quite frequently. And I got to a point in my practice where I said, you know what? I know what I bring to the table. I know the value that I have, and I'm no longer going to settle. And so I am now out of network with insurance companies. I try to help my people out by doing the out-of-network billing for them, so that when they have out-of-network benefits, then they can get reimbursed once they meet their deductible. But I'm not going to lie, it was terrifying. The whole thing was terrifying. Deciding to go out of network was one of the scariest things that I ever did. But you know what? It aligns with who I am. It aligns with my values, my ethics. It allows me to provide the types of services that I want to provide, not some demanded upon procedure by an insurance company. Insurance doesn't dictate anymore what I do with my people, and it's been amazing. And so that was one time when negotiations failed, and so I walked away. But that doesn't always happen. There have been times when I have negotiated for a different position, a salary increase, even working for the state. For any of you who work for government agencies, you know that there are some pretty tight restrictions. There's line titles and all this other stuff that you have to go through. But I successfully negotiated a couple of salary increases because I was very persistent about knowing what I brought to the table and the duties that I were doing that were not in my job description. So that's where the data part comes in. Know what your job description is. If you're doing more than that, bring that to the table. And I'm not even going to waste everybody's time talking about all of the negotiation that I've done in my personal life. I tend to win those, to be very honest, because, again, when I'm having a discussion with my husband, I bring the data to the table so that he can't argue with me. All right, Hive, you know what time it is. Let's embrace our affirmation of the week. Say it with me or scream it in your car. I don't care. Here we go. I negotiate from a place of power, worth, and unwavering self-respect. Let it sink in. Feel it. Believe it. Become it. This affirmation isn't about pretending that you're fearless. It's about anchoring yourself in truth, even when your nerves are loud. Because your worth is not up for debate, even when the terms are. Negotiation isn't you asking for permission. It's you setting the terms for how you will be valued. And every time you embody this affirmation, you are rewiring years of conditioning that told you to stay quiet, stay agreeable, and stay small. We are not doing that anymore. We are expanding. And that is powerful. All right, ladies, here's what I want you to take with you today. Negotiation is not about being aggressive. It is not about being liked. It is about being aligned with your value, aligned with your boundaries, aligned with the life that you are building. And here's the deeper truth. Every time you advocate for yourself, you are disrupting a system that benefits from your silence. You are modeling for other women what is possible. You are rewriting the narrative. In that ripple effect, it matters more than you think. All right, queens, I'm going to take a second and get a little bit personal and vulnerable. After I opened up my email today, one of my listeners I discovered this right before I recorded the episode, so I'm a little flustered by it. So apologies that this isn't very polished right now. I discovered that one of my listeners sent me money. and it just said, for the podcast. And I'm going to try really hard not to cry, because right before I was working on the podcast. I had just finished up writing, like finishing the script, polishing it up a little bit. And I was sitting there, and it was this episode. And I was sitting there and I'm thinking, does this even matter? Does anyone really care? Is this a stupid topic? Is this podcast even making a difference? And I went into this spiral of self-doubt. I don't know where it came from. Yes, I do. I've had a rough week. I've had some very, I've dealt with some very sexist type of situations. And then for those of you who are following current events in the United States and around the world, there's been a lot of not so fabulous behavior of men, men exchanging tips on how to assault women, like that kind of stuff. So I was just sitting there, just really bogged down by all of this. I was feeling crappy. I was thinking, why do I open myself up to criticism by putting this podcast on? And does it even matter? And then after I got this email and I saw that I was given this generous donation, I was so touched, and I started thinking about why I started doing this podcast in the first place. And it was because I want to empower women. That is my mission. That is my goal in life. I've hit the stage in my life where I want to give to women. And I started thinking about another one of my listeners who she posted recently in our group about listening to the podcast on her way to a conference and there were other people in the car with her. And she's also someone who tells everyone she knows about the podcast. And then I thought about another listener who has invited like tons and tons of people to the group. And I'm like, wait a minute, girlfriend, adjust your crown, you queen. Look what you're doing. It is a good thing. Whether I help one person or 100 people or 1 million people, I'm not doing it for like self-validation. I'm doing it for the greater good. And for some reason, the universe hears me every single time I start to doubt myself. And then it's like I don't want to say I'm like given a sign, because I don't know if I really believe in like signs, so to speak, but I do believe in energies and the universe and all that fun woo-woo stuff. And I just want to take this moment and thank all of you who listen, because you are helping a movement to empower women. You are helping to spread the word every single time you share this podcast. You are helping to spread empowerment to women who need it, who might not have anyone in their lives who are telling them how amazing they are. And so here I am telling you how amazing you are. And damn, this really sucks that I'm doing video now, because I do not like crying, because I'm not one of those pretty criers. You know, I always think of like beautiful blue-eyed women with eyes shimmering with tears. They look pretty when they cry. No, I got the Hot Mess Express going on here. So, all right, bringing it back. Thank you, thank you, thank you to my listeners who tune in every week, to those of you who share the podcast, to the very generous donation that I received. Thank you. You make this so worthwhile, knowing that there are people out there who value the wisdom that I try to share when I try to share my expertise, my empowerment, my motivation. So thank you. All right, queens, I got to go blow my nose now. So, if this episode lit a fire in you, and I hope it did, here's what I want you to do. This week, identify one area of your life where you've been settling and initiate a conversation. Ask for more. Clarify expectations. Set a boundary. Start the negotiation. And I want you to notice what comes up for you. The fear, the discomfort, the empowerment. Because awareness is where change begins. And if you need support, come join us in the Hint Hive community on Facebook. This is your space to practice, share wins, and get real about the hard stuff. Or even share a meme that is going to make someone laugh. It's a great space, I promise. And if you love this episode, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a woman who needs to hear it. Because we are not playing small anymore. We are negotiating. We are advocating. We are rising together. All right, Hive, stay bold, stay buzzing, and I'll catch you next time. This podcast is powered by Kelly Hint Empowerment Coaching, as well as Kelly M. Hint LMHC and The Cranky Counselor. To find out more about coaching services, head over to CoachKellyHint.com. If you'd like to know more about the psychotherapy services I offer to individuals within the state of New York, you can check out KellyMHint.com. And if you'd like to learn more about aromatherapy, you can check out TheCrankyCounselor.com.